In the previous chapter, we explored ownership rights and how property can be held individually, jointly, or in trust. Now, we shift to the legal limitations that can restrict or burden those rights, encumbrances and liens. Understanding these is essential because they directly impact a property's marketability of title, meaning how easily ownership can be transferred to another without dispute or legal hindrance. A marketable title is one that is free from defects or claims that might question ownership. In real estate, before a property can be sold or financed, the title must be verified as clean and transferable. Any document, claim, unreleased lien, or encumbrance that makes ownership doubtful is called a cloud on title. These clouds are usually discovered during a title search, and they must be resolved before a sale can proceed. For example, if a previous owner failed to release a paid mortgage lien, that lien remains a cloud on the title until officially cleared. When title issues arise, the owner may need to file a quiet title action, a lawsuit brought to establish ownership and eliminate competing claims. The purpose of this legal proceeding is to quiet all challenges or disputes, so the owner holds an undisputed title. For example, if two people claim ownership of the same property due to an old inheritance issue, a quiet title action would determine who rightfully owns the property and permanently remove any conflicting claims. Encumbrances defined. An encumbrance is any claim, right, or interest in real property held by someone other than the property owner that limits the owner's full use and enjoyment of the property. While it does not grant possession, it can restrict ownership rights or reduce the property's market value. In some cases, an encumbrance can even lead to the loss of ownership, as in the case of foreclosure. There are two main categories of encumbrances: those that affect the property's use, such as easements, deed restrictions, or zoning limitations. Those that affect ownership, value, or transfer, such as liens, judgments, or unpaid taxes. Almost all property in the United States has some form of encumbrance recorded against it. Title companies and attorneys search public records to identify these encumbrances before closing. A buyer or lender will only proceed once the title is clear or all encumbrances have been properly addressed. Effect on real estate. Encumbrances are a burden on ownership. They give another party certain rights or interests that can limit how an owner uses the property. For instance, a homeowner may have a mortgage lien from their lender, a utility easement allowing power lines to cross the property, or covenants restricting what kind of fences can be built. Each of these creates an encumbrance that impacts ownership and may decrease market value. Common types of encumbrances. Mortgage, a lien given by a borrower to secure repayment of a home loan. If the borrower defaults, the lender can foreclose and sell the property to recover the debt. Deed of trust. Similar to a mortgage but involves a third-party trustee who holds title until the loan is paid. Deed restrictions, covenants. Private agreements that limit land use, often found in planned communities or subdivisions. For example, prohibiting certain exterior paint colors or restricting short-term rentals. Mechanics lien, a lien filed by contractors, subcontractors, or material suppliers who haven't been paid for work performed or materials supplied. For example, if a roofer replaces a roof but isn't paid, they can record a mechanic's lien on the property. Tax lien, a government claim against a property for unpaid taxes, which can result in foreclosure if unresolved. Judgment. Lien, created when a court awards money to a creditor, allowing them to place a lien on the debtor's property. Water rights. These grant a person the legal right to use water on or under someone else's land. Profits, a right to extract resources such as timber, minerals, or fish from another's property. Easement, a non-possessory interest that allows someone to use part of another's property for a specific purpose like access roads or utility lines. Encumbrances run with the land, meaning they remain attached to the property even when it is sold. Clearing them typically requires paying off the associated debt or reaching a legal resolution. Easements. An easement is a type of encumbrance that gives one party the right to use another's property for a particular purpose without owning it. Easements can exist on, above, or below the land's surface, such as driveways, pipelines, or utility lines. The party benefiting from the easement is called the dominant tenement, while the property burdened by it is the servient tenement. Easements can be affirmative, allowing use, for example, crossing a driveway, or negative, prohibiting certain actions, such as blocking a neighbor's ocean view. Easement appurtenant. An easement appurtenant attaches to real property and benefits the owner of an adjacent parcel. It involves two properties, the dominant estate, which benefits, and the servient estate, which bears the burden. The easement becomes part of the dominant estate's rights and automatically transfers with the property when it is sold. For instance, if Mary is granted the right to cross John's driveway to reach her garage, Mary's property is dominant, and John's is servient. If Mary later sells her property, the new owner also inherits that right of passage, easement by necessity. An easement by necessity is granted by a court when a property owner has no legal access to their land. Because land cannot be legally landlocked, the court will allow the owner access through a neighboring property. For example, if parcel A is completely surrounded by other parcels and has no direct road access, the court may grant an easement across parcel B so the owner of A can reach the public road. Party wall easement. A party wall is a shared wall or structure located on the boundary line between two adjoining properties, such as in townhouses or duplexes. Each owner typically owns their half of the wall, but both grant a negative easement appurtenant, preventing damage or modification that would affect the other owner's structure. Maintenance responsibilities are also shared equally. Other common party arrangements include shared fences, driveways, and walkways. These agreements ensure that each owner's rights are respected and that shared structures are properly maintained. Review summary. In this section, we learned that encumbrances are claims or restrictions that limit an owner's use or transfer of property. They do not grant possession but can affect market value, ownership rights, or title transfer. Liens are financial claims, while easements and covenants affect property use. A quiet title action may be necessary to clear disputes. Key examples include mortgages, mechanics liens, taxes, easements, water rights, and deed restrictions. Easements such as appurtenant by necessity and party wall allow the use of another's property in defined ways and remain attached to the land upon transfer. Discussion. What makes a title marketable? Answer. A title is marketable when it is free from claims, liens, or encumbrances that could challenge ownership or transfer. Why might an owner file a quiet title action? Answer. To resolve disputes or remove clouds on title so ownership is clearly established. What is the difference between an easement and a lien? Answer. An easement grants use rights to another party, while a lien is a financial claim against the property. How does an easement appurtenant differ from an easement by necessity? Answer. An easement appurtenant benefits an adjoining property and transfers with ownership, while an easement by necessity is court-ordered to prevent land from being landlocked. Closing remarks. Encumbrances are part of nearly every real estate transaction. They reflect the complex intersection between private ownership rights and public or private interests in property use and finance. Understanding them ensures that titles are clear, ownership is secure, and transactions are conducted with confidence. Whether dealing with easements, liens, or deed restrictions, real estate professionals must recognize how these limitations affect value, transfer, and use.